Robert Shiller, the Nobel laureate who called the 2006 housing bubble and built the index Wall Street uses to track home prices, has issued his most alarming warning in nearly 20 years. And this warning isn't just about stocks. It's about your house, your equity, and the entire U.S. economy. Because Shiller's own CAPE ratio, the valuation metric he built and won a Nobel Prize for, is now sitting at 41.66. That's higher than it was in September 1929, right before the Great Depression. It's the second highest reading in 149 years of American market history. And now, for the first time, the Case-Shiller Home Price Index he co-created is confirming what he's been warning about. This is 1929 all over again. Let me walk you through three specific things. Number one, the exact Case-Shiller data that just confirmed Robert Shiller was right. Number two, the U.S. housing markets that are already collapsing in real terms, while the national headlines pretend everything is fine. And number three, the exact mechanism by which the crash Shiller is warning about would hit your home equity, sometimes within 60 days. So let me back up for a second. Robert Shiller is not just some economist with a hot take. This is the man who literally built the tools that measure asset bubbles for a living. He won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2013 for his work on asset prices. He co-created the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller Home Price Index, the most respected home price benchmark in the country. His book, Irrational Exuberance, called the dot-com bubble almost to the month back in March 2000. And in 2005, he updated it with a housing chapter and called the coming crash 2 years before Lehman Brothers collapsed. So when Robert Shiller talks about 1929, people, we pay attention. Now, the Shiller CAPE ratio is his own invention. It takes the S&P 500's current price and divides it by the average of the last 10 years of inflation-adjusted earnings. It smooths out the noise and gives you a real picture of long-term valuation. In September 1929, right before the crash that triggered the Great Depression, the CAPE hit 32.56. In December 1999, at the peak of the dot-com mania, it hit 44.2. Today, in July 2026, the CAPE is sitting at 41.66. That's higher than 1929. That's only 6% below the all-time peak from December 1999. And that has never, ever ended well. Now, here's what makes July 2026 completely different from anything we've seen before. In 2000, we had a stock bubble, but housing was reasonably priced. In 2006, we had a housing bubble, but stocks were coming out of the dot-com crash. Today, for the first time in American history, we have both at the same time. Stocks are at nearly 1929 valuations, and housing sits at levels that May 2026 Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas research finds are well above the fundamentals implied ratio, even after the pandemic-era overshoot abroad is already reversed. This is exactly why Shiller stated in November 2025 that his expected annual return on U.S. stocks over the next decade is roughly 1.5%. Let that sink in. 1.5% for a decade. That's not a market that's going to bail anyone out. That's a market that is telling you it has nothing left in the tank. And the reason both of these bubbles have been able to keep inflating at the same time comes down to one thing. The American consumer has been spending like there's no tomorrow. According to Bureau of Economic Analysis data published on Fred, the personal savings rate has collapsed to some of the lowest readings on record. People aren't saving because they feel rich. Their 401k is at a record. Their Zillow estimate is at a record. So they spend. So let me deliver on that first promise. I told you I was going to show you the specific Case-Shiller data that just confirmed Robert Shiller was right. Here it is. In the most recent release from S&P Dow Jones Indices covering April 2026 data, the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index came in at just 0.8% year over year. Let me put that in perspective. That is the weakest year-over-year print since the recovery from the 2012 housing crash bottom. And when you adjust for inflation, which has been running about 2%, that means real home prices in America have now declined for 11 straight months. That's not a market that is holding up. That's a market that is rolling over in real terms, and the nominal print is masking it. And here's what the mainstream real estate media isn't telling you. The Case-Shiller 20-city metro data is deeply negative in real terms across most of the Sun Belt and the West Coast. Tampa, Phoenix, Dallas, San Francisco. These were the darlings of the 2020 through 2022 boom, and they're now the leading edge of the correction. This is exactly what Shiller had been warning about for years, and the index he co-created, the tool he literally built to measure this exact thing, is now, in real time, confirming him. Real quick, before we get into what happens next, if this market intel is helping you make better decisions, hit that notification bell. We drop new housing data every week, and the viewers who catch it first get the best opportunities. The bell ensures you see everything immediately, not days later when the market has already moved. Now, here's where it gets worse, because it's not just Case-Shiller. Let me walk you through these stress signals building underneath the surface. According to the most recent Intercontinental Exchange Mortgage Technology Mortgage Monitor, mortgage delinquencies are climbing, and it's FHA loans that are leading the way. FHA is the loan program that lower-income and first-time buyers rely on. The FHA serious delinquency rate is now running at levels not seen since the aftermath of the pandemic. Department of Veterans Affairs delinquency is also elevated, which tells you that the households who bought at the top of the market with the smallest down payments are starting to break. Adam Data Solutions is reporting foreclosure filings up year over year for multiple consecutive months. Now, we're not at 2008 levels, let me be clear about that, but the direction of travel matters because when foreclosures rise into a market where prices are already softening, you get feedback that accelerates the decline. Then look at what the home builders are telling you in their own SEC filings. D.R. Horton, Lennar, Pulte Group, and KB Home have all been reporting elevated use of incentives, mortgage rate buydowns, and outright base price cuts. The National Association of Home Builders Housing Market Index has been running well below the neutral 50 line for months, meaning more builders are pessimistic than optimistic. And Cotality, formerly CoreLogic, has flagged rising negative equity in several Sunbelt metros where 2021 and 22 buyers are now underwater on the homes they just bought. Here's the concrete math straight from the NAR Housing Affordability Index. In the West region, the qualifying income you need to afford the median home is $142,176. The actual median family income in the West is $114,914. That's a gap of $27,262. And in California specifically, that gap gets significantly wider. Something has to give. Now, let me deliver on that second promise. I told you I was going to name the markets already collapsing in real terms. Here they are. Based on the most recent Case-Shiller 20-city data and the Zillow Home Value Index, the metros showing the most acute weakness are concentrated in the Sun Belt and the West. Tampa, Florida is at the top of the list. Phoenix, Arizona, Dallas, Texas, Austin, Texas, San Francisco, California, Denver, Colorado, and a cluster of Southwest Florida markets from Cape Coral to Fort Myers. Now, here's the pattern. Every one of these markets has three things in common. Number one, they saw explosive price appreciation between 2020 and 22. In some cases, 40 to 60% in just 2 years. Number two, they attracted enormous volumes of investor and second home buyer capital. And that's exactly the capital that runs first when a market turns. And number three, according to Realtor.com and Redfin, their active inventory has surged well above 2019 pre-pandemic norms. Now, here's the controversial take, and it's fully anchored to Case-Shiller and Zillow data. The mainstream real estate media keeps telling you the housing market is broadly holding up. That's true only if you look at the national blended average. Based on metro-level Case-Shiller data, roughly half of the top 20 U.S. metros are already in outright year-over-year price decline. If you own a home in one of those metros, the national headlines have absolutely nothing to do with what's happening on your street. Now, let me deliver on the third promise. I told you I was going to show you the exact mechanism by which a stock market drop would hit your home equity. Here it is. It's called the wealth effect, and Robert Shiller himself has written about it for decades. Here's how it works. Right now, the American consumer feels rich because their 401k is at record highs and their Zillow estimate is at record highs. The Federal Reserve calls this paper wealth. It's not cash in your account. It's numbers on a screen. But those numbers make people feel comfortable spending money that they don't actually have, which is why the personal savings rate is at record lows. Now, imagine the Shiller CAPE at 41.66 finally reverts to its historical average of about 17. That's roughly a 60% decline in stock market valuations. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but if it plays out over 12 to 24 months, here's what happens. Households pull back on spending. Corporate earnings slow. Layoffs pick up. Those laid-off workers stop making their mortgage payments. Foreclosures accelerate on top of the foreclosures already rising. Investors and second homeowners in Tampa and Phoenix and Austin start dumping properties to raise cash. Inventory floods the market. Prices fall further. Homeowners who were already underwater walk away. And you get the exact 2008 dynamic that Shiller mapped out in Irrational Exuberance almost 20 years ago. This is the mechanism. This is why the 1929 comparison matters. And this is what the mainstream real estate media isn't telling you. So here's what this all means for you depending on where you sit. If you're a homeowner, pay very close attention to your specific local market. The national data is a lagging blended average. Your equity depends on what's happening in your metro, your county, your neighborhood. If you live in Tampa or Phoenix or Austin or any of the Sunbelt markets I named, you've already lost real equity over the last 12 months, whether you realize it or not. If you're a seller and you're sitting in any of these softening markets, price aggressively and price now. Every month you wait is potentially a lower sale price. The sellers who are winning right now are the ones who accepted reality first. If you're a buyer, this is the moment to be patient and be smart. The Shiller CAPE is telling us stocks are priced for terrible returns. Case-Shiller is telling us housing is rolling over in real terms. The decisions you make in the next 12 months could save you or cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Don't let anyone rush you. Bookmark this video, come back in 6 months and check every single number we just showed you against the fresh data. That's how confident we are in what Shiller and Case-Shiller are telling us right now. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so the next video lands in your feed the moment it drops. And watch this one next. We'll see you next time.